This one's called Into the Pits. Into the pits. The best production and the feeling of all. Into the pits. The future screams are up and fade away. Into the pits. The world tomorrow will end up with the day. Into the pits. What is it good in the light? 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 First one to find when you have a bit of mind and all my thoughts and about the tail. Into the silly bag. Feel about with your mind. Into the bag. Records in dive. Into the silly bag. Feel about with your mind. Records in dive. Do the toxic wall. Do the toxic wall. Do the toxic wall. Do the toxic wall. Do the toxic wall.
This is Barry Alpert, former bassist of AMBOOG-A-LARD, and you are listening to The Pit on the original underground WROC, Fort Lauderdale.
All right, and that was AMBOOG-A-LARD with Balance of Power from their 1990 demo. AMBOOG-A-LARD was, of course, from Fort Lauderdale. That particular demo was recorded with Tom Morris at Morris Sound Studios. They were what I would consider one of the big four of South Florida metal bands at the time, along with Rape Ape, Malevolent Creation, and Cynic. On the phone with me, I have Jimmy Harrowvex from the Greensboro, North Carolina-based band Divine Treachery. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All right, great. I want to give a little bit of a backstory for everybody. I had first heard these guys at a small festival in Greenville, South Carolina called Starkfest. One of the things that really impressed me was, the band. One of the first things they did is they came and they handed me a sticker, and I think I might have even got some sort of a beer cozy or something like that. And they were really the only band that were doing that. When they went ahead and played, one of the things that first caught me too was that it was just like a blend of styles. You had what I heard was like some of that classic kind of Florida death metal-y stuff, like Brutality or Solstice or any Malevolent Creation bands that had kind of like the thrashier end of death metal. And as well as hearing some of the newer thrash stuff, I mean, maybe not so new, but like The Haunted or maybe even some of the bands like Warbringer and Evil and stuff like that. Fast forward, and I get a copy of a single in the mail. The song is called Panic. Jimmy, do you want to tell me a little bit about that, as well as who the band is and a little bit of your background?
Sure. I'll just start with the band. I play guitar, and I'm kind of between me and the drummer. His name is Alan. We kind of started the band, and it actually didn't start as we were getting together to be a band. He and I both had been in a previous band together a couple years ago, and the band just fell apart for whatever reason. And he knew I'd kind of stepped away for a little while for just various reasons. And from then on out, he had been trying to get me to come and jam with him. And he's like, hey, I'm playing drums now. He was playing bass in the other band, but the guy can just play anything. So
right.
But anyway, he was like, come jam with me, just come play with me, just help me out, whatever. He knew I had a few tunes that I had kind of written a while back. So one day he finally coaxed me into coming in, and he knew once he got me in there to play with him one time, I would be hooked, just because that's how it is.
Sure.
And from then on out, we just played for a while, just two friends playing music. We'd go up twice a week and, just play the same few songs over, and then, riff here and there. And it just got to the point where, I couldn't stand anymore. And I said, well, let's do this. Between he and I, we were like, all right, let's look for some other people. And the place where we practice is, it's just it's storage units. So there's loads of bands that practice there, and there's always people coming in and out. And so over the course of a couple of years, we had met several people, be singers or other guitar players or bassists that would come in and jam with us. And finally, we had a gentleman by the name of Craig come in, and he actually started out as a second guitar player. We had another guy trying to play bass with us for a while. Guy that was playing bass, he decided, hey, I've got other things I got to do. So he stepped away. And of course, Craig was like, hey, bass is my forte. Do you mind if I step down? So that kind of left the three of us. And we went through a few vocal changes, and until we met Dalton, who is our singer now. We call him Dalton Kong because he stomps around everywhere. But he came in, and he and Craig were actually from a band together called Hexus. And that band was actually still going when they came and joined us. And so we jammed for a while and looked for another guitar player, and kind of went through that for about a year, writing songs and just trying to solidify everything. Found another guitar player, got ready to play a few shows. The guy comes in and says, hey, my wife was pregnant, our first baby. And of course, they're a young couple. So he steps away from the band and leaves us a four-piece, and we decide to seal the deal. And that's kind of where Divine Treachery came from. We're in about our third year right now.
Right.
So
okay.
Every year we push it forward.
Right. Now, How about some of your influences? What can you tell us about that?
All of us are all over the board. Of course, we like all kinds of music, but as far as metal goes, we love Testament. Sepultura is a huge influence on myself. Suffocation, Death, any Slayer, just any of the old school thrash. We do like a lot of the new style music, Black Dahlia Murder, into that kind of, metal as well. We like it all.
Right.
Actually, if you come into our unit, you're more likely to hear something non-metal than metal. It's
sure.
kind of funny.
Well, I mean, that's usually the way it is.
Yeah.
For all of us. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
You can't do it 24 hours a day. I guess some people do.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you would be surprised at the people that drive by our unit that's just passing through. And of course, if they can hear, if it's, rap or something crazy, they're looking in like, wait a minute, those dudes either have long hair and long beards, and they do not look like they need to be listening to that.
Right. And a lot of metal fans are like, that way. I mean, if I were to go back to the early days, I mean, I was that way. But you think things change. I mean, it's, I was a huge Testament fan, and at the time I'd play guitar in a few bands, and Alex Skolnick was like a favorite of mine. I could never like solo the way he did, but still, it was amazing. But you would read interviews and it'd be like, well, they'd be, who are your influences? They'd be like Al Di Meola. And I'm like, well, who the hell is Al Di Meola, right? So,
right.
What do? I hop down to the record store and I pick up, Al Di Meola cassette. Land of the Midnight Sun, and I put that on, and I'm like, what is this? But you could hear, but as you went through, you could hear that influence, and so then you start looking at other stuff. So now you're looking at whether it's jazz guys or what progressive bands or anything, and you just start kind of expanding out of that. So
absolutely, and I really listening to different styles of music. I mean, it's no secret, but I mean, I think that just adds to your writing ability, or not writing ability, but your song process and putting songs together.
I mean, absolutely. And it helps you from a songwriting perspective and production perspective and all kinds of things. It's more than that. And and if you don't expand, you're going to get stagnant anyway. So
absolutely.
The bigger your vocabulary, the longer you're going to be able to create stuff that's interesting. It would be like an author if he just wrote, the same book over and over again for 20 years. I mean, some people can do it. I mean, AC/DC did it, but they're probably one of the few that could, rewrite their songs for, for that long.
Yeah, there's not many people that can pull that off.
Right. All right, so we're going to jump ahead a little bit now. Not long after Starkfest, I'd gotten a message from you asking for my address, and a couple weeks later, I get this CD single in the mail. The song is called Panic, and it's kind of like a prelude, to your first album, which we'll talk about in a little while. But what can you tell us about Panic, and how well did this do for you as far as starting to build interest, in your album?
Well, it actually kind of started, early last year, we were talking about, we need to do an album. We've been out long enough. People need some legitimate music from us. All we had put out was a little 4-song demo that we recorded ourselves, and it wasn't the best product in the world. It was enough for you to get the music and find out who we were and get you to come to a show. But I mean, as far as like real nice production value, we didn't have anything. So, we got together and we're like, well, we want to record an album, but we knew that we weren't going to record an album until the end of the year. We were trying to figure out a way, how can we get something out to the people beforehand? Well, in our process of trying to find where we wanted to do the recording and who we wanted to work with, we chose 3 people locally around us and went and met with them. The second guy that we met with, we really liked his studio. We really liked him, but he was a little bit out of our price range as far as an album goes.
Sure.
And but rather than just telling the guy, hey, we can't work with you, we decided that we were going to choose the third guy for the album. We had already been down and, talked to him. We knew, his rates were great. He was, we totally clicked with the guy. So we knew that was going to work.
Right.
But what we decided to do was take the more expensive guy, Ryan Reedy is his name, from Louisville, North Carolina. We just decided to do a song with him, and we figured, hey, we can record one song. If we like what we hear, then in the future we can always come back. And we just thought being able to work with as many different people as we could, that's just only going to help us out in the long run. And we knew that he put out a great product.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah, and we had a brand new song that we had been working on, which turned into Panic. And so we chose that as our first single. And we just went in a weekend and knocked it out with Ryan Reedy. And he did a great job with the song. We were happy with it. But we also were thinking about a way that we could put it out rather than just saying, here's our demo, go download it. We wanted to do it in such a special way. Well, over the past couple of years, I've kind of been taking note of people that I've noticed that have either supported our band, pushed us anyway, or people that come to our shows often and, been making a mental note. So what we decided to do was just put together a little gift package and send out a CD, a thank you note. We sent it out to probably about 60 different people. And all we did was just ask people for their address. We didn't tell them we were sending them anything. We didn't say anything. And so these people just started getting stuff in the mail.
Right.
And about 2 days after I mailed out my first package, then you started seeing on social media, people were just starting to post pictures. Look what I got in the mail. Look what I got in the mail. And it created like this huge buzz. And at least in our area around, and I really think that kind of helps us out and kind of boosted us up just a little bit. But, and I can't say that I came up with that idea completely. We have another local band that kind of did something similar, but they only sent it to one person a couple states away. And I thought, hey, how can I make that even better?
Absolutely.
And,
because I mean, oh, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it was just something we decided to do. We just thought it was cool, and we hadn't really seen anybody else around here do that.
Right.
So,
and I mean, that's really the way it needs to be done, because there's something to be said about, actually having like human to human contact with people that potential fans. We were talking about this earlier before we started the interview, and, back in what I would say the day, anywhere from, about mid-'80s to probably about the time when I started actually, being able to go out to shows and whatnot. And I mean, you could not walk out of a club without either, being handed, half dozen flyers, somebody's demo tape, or, whatever, and I mean, I guess I'll just go ahead and tell the story again, but I remember it was in 1990 being at a show. And, this tall, lanky guy comes walking up to me, and he's like, yeah, my name's Brett, and, here's my band's tape. That was Malevolent Creation. That's the demo that got him signed to Roadrunner. And things like that happen because you never know who's going to be there. What if an A&R rep from, whether it's Metal Blade Records or whoever, just so happens to be in the club that night?
Yeah, you're not going to know who they are. I mean, most likely.
Right.
And if you just go up and start talking to them, then you just never know, man.
Right. I mean, even if it's just, again, a simple greeting, hand them your recording, because you don't know. You don't know who's there, and, what kind of clout or, whatever it is that they've got. So it's good to be, personable. But, on the other hand, but pre-internet, it would be another thing. Like if you, let's say you ordered a demo tape, out of a fanzine back then, you'd get that tape in the mail. You'd open that up and you'd probably have, a brick of flyers or ads fall out of that envelope for other people's demos. So bands were constantly promoting each other. Of course, there was tape trading and all that other stuff. But I mean, you would never, ever, ever get a package that did not have probably a brick of flyers in it. And usually they'd also be sending you probably a brick of their own flyers. So that way, if you're ordering something through the mail, you drop one of their flyers in that envelope too. So it was just, it was a constant chain. And I mean, it's really not something that you can, you can't really do it that way with social media, but I mean, there are ways of doing that, even if,
Sure.
even if it's, you send something out and you've connected with somebody, drop a little, word about those guys too, and that everybody kind of builds off of each other. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move into this first slate of songs here. And of course, we're going to go ahead and we're going to play Panic from that single. Also, we're going to have SADUS with Kill Team from their 1986 demo, DTP, which stood for Death to Posers. And Infernal Majesty with Skeletons in the Closet from their 1986 demo. I'm Von Erich. You are listening to The Pit. The dial stops here.
Shoot him down.
All right, and we're back. I'm Von Erich, and along with me is our featured guest for this episode, Jimmy Harrowvex from Greensboro, North Carolina's Divine Treachery. And once again, you just heard their first single called Panic, as well as tracks from SADUS and Canada's Infernal Majesty. We're going to go ahead and move on to some tracks from their debut independently released album. The album's called Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering. It was released this year. And how about telling us a little bit about this one?
Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering. The people in our general area here had pretty much heard the first 9 tracks that we had on there. We probably tightened them up a little bit and maybe did some minor changes. But those were all tracks we'd kind of been playing for the past 2 years, and then we wrote 2 new tracks for the album, From the Womb to the Tomb and Since Amelia Arrived. Those were both brand new. We released those, and we hadn't played those out anywhere, so it was kind of neat to have 2 new songs along with the old ones we were actually finally bringing to life.
Sure.
We did that in Lakeview, South Carolina with Cody Rogers at Sound Force Recordings. Young guy, he did an amazing job, and the kid is just learning his craft and just honing, and we worked pretty closely with him over a couple months of weekends to get it done. We're proud of it, though, definitely. I mean, I think everybody says, we kind of are all over the place with our sound, but sometimes I think we kind of are, because we try to throw in so many different styles of metal and see if we can make it work some way. So hopefully we were able to put that to light on this album.
Right.
So far we've had, really good reception from everyone.
Well, I mean, it sounds great. Packaging's great. I mean, the songs. I mean, you got the whole package here. What have you been doing with the record? Have you actually been trying to scope out a deal, or?
We haven't jumped into that spot yet. We've just been trying to push the record to anybody that we can. We haven't spoke to anyone about record deals. We haven't come in contact with those. Yeah, any kind of people like that. So, hey, if you're listening, we would be glad to talk to you. We're just looking to see how far we can push this.
Sure.
And, like I said, like you said earlier, every show we're handing out and talking to people, and hopefully, meeting someone that can help us, get to that next step. We've been pretty fortunate so far. It's been a little slow road, but, for the most part, it usually is. But luckily for us, it's been the forward path and not the reverse.
I mean, hell, if I would have heard those tracks before you put it out, I probably would have offered and done it. Because I heard it, and I just like, man, I would have put that out.
Now we know for future.
Well, I mean, the whole basis of Thrashback Records is really just to do reissue old recordings. Can you tell us a bit about this first song that we're going to play, Dead Ringer?
Oh, well, Dead Ringer. And I'm going to sound like a big idiot because I'm not the guy that writes the lyrics. And I've heard Dalton tell a million times what the song is about. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are. I'm so focused on the guitar.
Or maybe
focused on the guitar.
Just I hear you. Okay, so they're going to make it interesting. I mean, even like, what's okay musically, then we'll just jump into that. As far as in your estimation,
what I can tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
What I can tell you about Dead Ringer is actually that was the very first song that we wrote and played as a band.
Okay.
So it was kind of fitting for us to put it as the first song on the album.
Sure.
But when that song, I almost felt like was just kind of like a rap in what we wanted to sound like.
Right.
You know, it had a lot of thrash elements in it. It's just kind of nonstop from the beginning to the end.
Sure.
As far as music-wise goes.
Right. Well, actually, I mean, I think every song on the record, you know, is kind of like that. I mean, you hear just bits and pieces of all kinds of stuff, you know. I mean, it's, you know, thrashy. And again, I mean, you have like some of those mild, like death metal elements going on.
Sure.
You know, and I kind of like, I guess if I were to have to, you know, for people who are coming, you know, from the older stuff, I would just describe it as like time kind of moved into that early 90s. There were bands such as, you know, Epidemic and Demolition Hammer and whatnot, who were starting to, or even maybe even a little bit Devastation out of Texas. They were starting to kind of bridge that gap a little bit, where it was not so much just pure thrash, but they were kind of getting a little rougher and putting those death metal elements into it. And that's kind of what I hear. It's just that blend, but it's just kind of like notched up a little bit. But anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and take a listen to Dead Ringer. And this will be followed with a track from San Francisco's Forbidden, who are at the time known as Forbidden Evil, with Chalice of Blood from their 1987 demo. And then we're going to move forward with Epidemic with a track called In Fear We Kill. That's from their 1989 demo, and which was also released a few years back by Dive Bomb Records on an reissue. It's called Pandemic, the Demo Anthology. And I am Von Erich. This is The Pit, and the dial stops here.
kiss. Congregation makes the list. Pass around your money place. Gather round to celebrate. Welcome to the church of lies. A double die. A priest cry. Man will die. Welcome to the church of lies. Darlings of blood. Wait to feel lost. Darlings of blood. Priest of death, an evil man. Mark of death on his head. A wicked way to change state. Dwell in sin, they will pray. See the religion, we will see. Run in panic, they will bleed. Out for good, we will bow. Venture into it, death it all. Welcome to the church of lies. A double die. A thief alive. Man will die. Welcome to the church of lies. Darlings of blood. Wait to feel lost. Darlings of blood.
All right, and we're back, and that was Epidemic with In Fear We Kill from their 89 demo. I am Von Erich, and I'm back once again with our guest, Jimmy Harrowvex from Greensboro, North Carolina's Divine Treachery. And I want to go ahead now. We're gonna kind of go ahead again. I know you're not the lyric guy, but the next song that we're actually going to play is the title track from your new album, Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering. Is there anything you could tell me about this one?
Actually, Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering, I do know a little bit about that. Pretty much what that song is about. It just seems like the people, no matter what you're suffering over, no matter if it's a disease or money or, I mean, it could be anything. Whatever your disease is, it just seems like the people that are suffering never get better. They just keep suffering and suffering and suffering.
Right.
Now, whether it's them to pull themselves out, you know, whether they can't pull themselves out or don't want to or whatever the fact may be, it just seems like it's a never-ending cycle. And actually, I have to say, I was listening to a podcast with, oh my goodness, Suffocation guitar player. Can't think of his name off the top of my head.
I wish I could help you with that.
Way,
they've had a few lineup changes over the years.
I don't know why I could think of his. Yeah, I could think of his name any other day of the week. But anyway, I was listening to a podcast with him, and he was talking about something. And in one of his lines, he said it's kind of like a never-ending cycle for the suffering. And immediately that clicked, and I was just like, you know, that's awesome, that's perfect. And of course, I gave something cool for Dalton to write around as well.
Right.
But mainly that's what it's about. And you know, it just seems like for those people that are just super suffering, they're never going to get out of it for whatever reason.
Right.
So it's just that never-ending cycle.
To go along with that, since it is the title track, this artwork. Now, the artwork is killer. Who did it? And if you want to go ahead and plug the artist so other people could look him up, I mean, feel free, because that's good stuff.
Absolutely. It's a guy out of France. His name is Remy Cooper, Remy Cooper with a C, and you can find him either on Facebook through his name. You can get to his website through that. But we were looking for artwork that kind of was reminiscent of like I guess old school, more death metal artwork, and we looked through a lot of people, looked through a lot of artists, and this guy just struck out. He's done work for people like Creator and Whitechapel and just some big name bands. So he's got a base of, you know, musicians that he works for.
Sure.
And he's got a lot of artwork that's for sale that's already completed. You can just buy it outright. So we commissioned him, and you know, we were like, hey, we've got this album coming out. You know, what can you do? Lay it on us. And we just basically, we didn't tell him what we wanted. We just told him the premise of the album, and we told him what we didn't want. You know, we don't want this on there. We don't want that, you know, this kind of imagery on there. And about a month later, he sent us the first incarnation, and we were just blown away. We were like, yes. And then he was like, well, good. He's like, I still have some tightening up to do. It's not finished yet. And we were like, what, really? And about a week later, he sent us the finished version, and we were just blown away. I mean, it was more than what we imagined it to be.
Well, I wouldn't doubt that.
The name of his art is Head Split Designs.
Okay.
So definitely, if you're looking for an awesome artist, he's the guy to go to. I mean, well worth it. Oh,
definitely. I mean, it's definitely killer stuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, I opened that package and I was just like, whoa. Because I mean, you know, I saw the graphics, you know, prior to the disc coming out, but once I actually opened it up, you know, and I'm listening to it and I pop it open, I'm like, you know, this is the way you do it.
Well, you know, when we first did the CD, our initial thing was, well, we're just going to do it, and we'll just have a page, a flip around page. And then we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, no, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We're going to make it 7 pages. We're going to put the lyrics in there. And we had him do the cover art, and I just did the layout and the rest of the booklet. I mean, we couldn't have been happier with it.
Definitely looks great.
We just felt like we didn't want to cut any corners.
You didn't do that with this one. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and listen to that title track, Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering. Then we're going to follow that up with Decadence Within from Malevolent Creation from their 1990 demo. And then we're going to play a track from Miami's Solstice. The track is Netherworld. And before I jump into that, I'm just we'll give a little background on that particular track. It was recorded in 1991. It was originally released in 92 on a local label, Strider Records, as part of their Unsigned series. The album was Unsigned 3 Killing Time. And now we're going to jump ahead to 2019, and Thrashback Records, which is my label, we're going to be reissuing that record under the name Killing Time Thrashed from the Vault. It's been completely remastered by the wonderful folks over at Bombworks Sound in Texas. That's Rob Caldwell. Really look forward to getting that thing out finally. With the move. This was supposed to be out earlier in the year, and now it's not going to be out until July. But anyway, so it's going to be that version of Netherworld. So again, I'm Von Erich. You are listening to The Pit, and the dial stops here.
This Cities like falling from the winter skies. Citizens make
All right, that was Netherworld from Miami Solstice, originally released in 1992 on the Strider Records compilation Unsigned 3 Killing Time, and in July will be re-released in remastered version under a new title, Killing Time, Thrash from the Vault on Thrashback Records. And for the younger fans, we'll give you a little bit of background on these guys. Solstice was formed by Alex Marquez, who is a drummer for Malevolent Creation, guitarist Rob Barrett, who went on to obviously play with Cannibal Corpse, and guitarist Dennis Munoz, who went on to play with Demolition Hammer. All right, and once again, I am Von Erich, and I am here with our guest, Jimmy Harrowvex from Greensboro, North Carolina's Divine Treachery. We've been spending some time talking about their fairly new album, Never-Ending Cycle for the Suffering, and we're going to go ahead and play another track from that. It is called From the Womb to the Tomb. Is there anything you can tell us about this one?
Actually, we have a guest vocalist come in and take part with that song and help us out. Mr. Chris Chaos Cobb from Cadaver Creator, another death metal band from North Carolina, super good friends of ours, and they kind of helped us along the way a little bit and become brothers. And so we decided to have Mr. Chris come and sing with us. It turned out to be really good, actually. He did a great job on it.
All right. Well, during the break, we were also talking about the possibility you guys are looking at doing a little bit of touring. What do you want to tell us about that?
We're trying to set up something for late August this year. We were hoping to come down maybe around the Florida area or just some states. We've only played North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, so we're looking to expand. And,
right.
No other better place to bring metal than Florida.
Right.
So that's one of the places that we actually were, thinking that we would love to come. And we've just been kind of trying to figure out other spots we might want to stop along the way. We've got another band that may want to do a little trek with us, and actually they'll be helping us out quite a bit because they already do short tours, so they have some contacts. We haven't gotten it off the ground yet, but that's what we're planning on, hopefully for late August. If that doesn't work out, then we may push it back a little bit and try to work with a couple of other bands and just do the same thing.
Right.
Either way. But we're trying to work our way out of North Carolina. We love North Carolina. There's still a lot of places here we haven't touched yet. But we have the rest of the United States too, so got a long way to go.
Yeah, it's a bit of ground to cover, but there's definitely something to be said about going out and making that kind of happen on your own. I mean, it's you wouldn't be the first. I mean, there are bands that have been signed to major labels that have had to go out and kind of do it on their own to kind of even prove it to them, which is, crazy, that you're going to have, not, we're going to jump out of the genre a little bit, but we're going to go back to, late 80s and Dream Theater. They signed a major label deal, and they're on MCA Records, and they weren't doing anything. Those guys, they just pack up a U-Haul and started making some noise. Of course, so by the time they started making up some noise, then even though it was MCA, it was actually an MCA subsidiary called Mechanic, and Mechanic had the funding pulled from them, so they were without a deal. So then it was another 3 years before they got a record again, and then they got to do it all over, because even by the time they got to Atlantic Records, Atlantic wasn't doing it either. So it wasn't until they started making noise that, Atlantic started throwing some money at them. So, there's something to be said about that, though, because if, you can build that base, then, it gives you a great jump start.
I agree. A good learning experience, too, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Because having to do it yourself, you're going to have to figure out how to get contacts and figure out how to get yourself into some of these venues that have never heard of you before. So it's a learning tool.
Absolutely. And you guys remain very active, as far as playing live. You want to go ahead and, before we started the interview, you were talking about, a recent festival that you guys did. And then I know you've got some other shows coming up. Why don't you go ahead and tell folks about those a little bit?
Sure. The festival that we just played this past weekend was in Charlotte. It's called the QC Metal Fest, or the Queen City Metal Fest. It's put together by another North Carolina band called Black Ritual, and this is their 5th year, and it's grown from one venue to another bigger venue, which would be the Underground at the Fillmore.
Okay.
But they do this once a year, and he picks, or should I say, they pick 6 or 7 bands from North Carolina, or the surrounding areas that I guess are making an impact. Luckily, we got chose this year, and it's just one of those shows that the bands around here want to be a part of. I mean, you're playing at an incredible venue. The crowd was amazing. It's probably the biggest crowd we've played for.
Right.
And from start to finish, and most of the time you go to shows and your first band doesn't always get a great crowd. It's not until you're 2 or 3 bands in until the crowd's there.
Sure.
Well, this show, they were there from start to finish, and every band had an amazing set.
Right.
I mean, it was just something that was great to be a part of.
Right.
We're very thankful. Our next, we've got a couple more shows lined up, little smaller shows throughout North Carolina at some places that we haven't played before, actually. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we've got a Wilmington Death Metal Fest in October in Wilmington, North Carolina. That's like a weekend thing, and that should be actually really cool. We've got some other friends that are also on that show as well, so that's something we're kind of looking forward to. And we've never played Wilmington, so
right on.
That kind of adds to it. But we're bouncing around a little bit, trying to get back into South Carolina a little more, but hopefully we can find some places there.
Sure.
Here where we are, most of our venues have kind of closed down.
Right.
Around the Greensboro area, we have like 1 venue left. So unfortunately, we're having to scramble, which is good in a way, because you don't want to oversaturate yourself too much in your area.
Which is
true. That kind of
true.
keeps us from doing that, I guess. Yeah. So that's kind of good in another way. Yeah, we're slowly booking, and like I said, we're trying to keep the August, September area open for a possible road trip.
Right on.
It's something we've all been looking forward to, and none of us have had that experience yet, so it's just another kind of stepping stone.
Having, for the last 13 years, I've been living in Greenville, South Carolina. One thing that I like, I don't know if any of the, the club owners or promoters or anything are going to be, hearing this. Hopefully they will, but please stop starting shows at 7:00 on a Friday or Saturday night. I mean, it just blows my mind, to see that, because I come back here and, I mean, first band doesn't even get on stage till 9:00. You got to give people time to get off work and eat and get in the club. I said, you want people to show up? That's a good way to get them to show up. Give them some time to be able to do it. I mean, you don't start a show on a weekend at 7 and then you're over by 11:00. I mean, it's insane,
And most of the clubs want you to play later anyway, because there's people in their club.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple other things, keep, if you're going to, keep covers reasonable. I mean, I've always kind of look at it this way. So if you're going to have a local show and you're going to charge a cover, give 100% of that damn cover to the bands.
Doesn't always happen.
No, but that's the way it should be. You're going to make, if you're going to make money from, from your bar, you're going to make money from your food, give the money to the bands. I mean, it was crazy, but I mean, it's not just the metal thing either, because there was this blues club in downtown Greenville, and they were doing almost like a battle of the bands. It was just to give some prime spots to one of these locals. Now, mind you, this is not like your typical local bands. I mean, these are blues acts. They're all older guys, and they're primarily playing like classics. They're playing like old Muddy Waters tunes and things like that. They're not original bands or anything like that. And they had a $10 cover charge. And this is a place that marketed themselves as a blues restaurant. So they had a full service restaurant, a bar, and then wanting to charge people a $10 cover to come in to see cover bands. Now, there's no logic in that. And anybody want to guess if that place is still open? I mean, that's just the way it goes. I mean, you can't do that. I come back here and nothing more, no more than like even, if it's a bunch of like original bands, like no more than $7 cover, and that's if you're under 21. If you're 21 or older, then it's usually around $3 or $4, something like that, because they know they're going to make money off the beer and food and.
And there's some venues that we play that they have the cover charge, but if you're under 21, then there's another $5 surge charge on top of that.
Right. Which is normal because they're not going to, they can't make money on the bar from kids, So there is a logic to that, but at least keep it reasonable. Because even if you're talking, like some 16-year-old, again, if it's $10 to go see some, local bands, or a couple dollars more, to go see the latest, CGI flick in the theater, with their friends, well, they're probably going to choose the theater. It's, there's a lot more competition. Either that, or the other suggestion that I could make, for, some of the younger people is like, get your nose out of your phone and go actually hang out with some like living human beings. So, and because that's the way to do it, because it's, unfortunately, see, page likes do not equate to, bodies in a building or even sales for an artist. None of that, whoop-de-doo. So, get out there and support some of your bands, man. Do it.
Absolutely. Right. And luckily we have in our scene here in North Carolina, it's very good because bands go out and support each other too. I know a lot of, there are some bands and they don't really go out and do much, whether it's supporting their own band or whatever. But luckily, we're, for the biggest part, we're kind of like a family here. If you go to a show here, you're probably going to see, 4 or 5 different bands there, at least one person from that, 4 or 5 different bands there.
Right.
If not more than that, obviously, that's kind of a small number, but there's always a group of, local musicians that are there supporting each other. And that's always nice too.
Right. Right.
So, that's something that you got to do too, is not only you got to get out and, push your own name, but it helps if you get out and, push your comrades, push your friends out, push their bands out there, and it just shows a bigger community,
right?
Bigger shows, and that helps build your shows too. So
sure.
So that's something that we try to do. We try to get out to local shows too, and not just our shows.
That's the way it ought to be anyway. Back in my time, that's how it was. You would always see people out. Hell, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden, he happens to, live down here. He lives probably no more than about maybe 15 minutes from where I'm living now. And then right down the street from where I am, he owns a restaurant called Rock and Roll Ribs. So, if you're, happen to be visiting, make sure you go. Because, it's not only a cool place to actually visit, but, the food is just amazing.
Oh, no doubt.
But
sounds like a place I want to hang out.
Oh, you would want to. If anything, just sit down, eat some ribs, and have yourself a Trooper beer. So, you got to do it.
Hey, see, that's right up my alley. Any kind of, meat that's thrown on a grill and a craft beer, and yeah, I'm home. Exactly.
It's awesome. But not, on top of that though, Nico himself, is very active here. Before I had moved, he actually had his own Iron Maiden cover band. It was called McBrain Damage. And, so I guess that was kind of like his warm-up thing, or maybe just, his stay in practice thing. But he'd, play out often. And he had, Dave Spitz, who had played bass for Black Sabbath for a while, was his bass player. Then he had this young kid named Chris Pirano. He was a kid from Ecuador that actually I had a chance to work with back then, like in 1998. I was working on an album for a local band here called Wraith. And, part way through the recording of the album, he ended up joining the band. And, but he was an amazing guitar player. But, not just that, but if you went out to a local club, a lot of times you would see Nico at the clubs. I mean, if, someone like, that can go out and support local acts, I said, you can.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of things, Nico could be doing, but he actually goes out and does that, so it's like a cool thing. But, anyway, so, well, let's go ahead and play From the Womb to the Tomb, and we're going to follow that up with a track from an old Phoenix, Arizona based band called Psychic Pond. The song is called Somniferous Putrescence. That's from their 1992 demo Wake of Entity, which also happens to feature Steve Dorsum, who's currently the drummer for a band called Images of Eden, who is still active. And then we're going to follow that up with an old 1993 track from West Palm Beach based band Raped Ape. The track is Remembrance. That's from it was from their EP Terminal Reality, and it was reissued in 2013 by Dive Bomb Records under the title Land of Broken Promises, which basically included everything they ever recorded. So check that out. And once again, I'm Von Erich. You're listening to The Pit, and the dial stops here.
Chaos all around, triple so bound.
All right, and we're back, and that was Raped Ape with Remembrance. Once again, it was originally released in 1993 on their EP, Terminal Reality, and then reissued in 2013 by Dive Bomb Records as a basically a 2 CD anthology called Land of Broken Promises, which covers everything they ever recorded except for their first demo. And I don't know. I'm going to keep working on that one. But, it wasn't the same lineup, so I understand the hesitation, but I'm going to keep working on that because I became a fan because of that first demo. And I'll, again, for some of the, people who aren't familiar with who they are, I'll give a little bit of a background on them as well. Not too long after that Terminal Reality EP was released, they ended up signing a deal with Century Media Records, and they had changed their name to Pain God. They ended up releasing one record through Century Media, as well as having a track called Pain God on Metal Massacre 12 through Metal Blade. After the band split up, their drummer J.C. Dwyer went on to play with Propane, did a few albums with them. And currently, he's actually doing some southern, kind of like country southern rock stuff under the name of J.C. Dwyer and the Blackbirds. And guitar player John Paul Soares, after Raped Ape split up, went on to play with Malevolent Creation for a while. Then later formed a band with Jason Blackowitz, who was a bass player in Malevolent Creation. They formed a band together called Divine Empire, and they did 3 albums together through Olympic Records, I believe. And he's currently a renowned and heavily touring blues artist. He has his band JP Soares and the Red Hots. I mean, they tour all over the world. He's up for all kinds of like major blues awards and everything else now. Frontman Mike Pucciarelli, he has he opened up a tattoo shop in West Palm Beach called Altered States, and he also does other artwork like oil paintings and stuff on the side, and he's done showings all over the world as well. So I mean, all those guys are just they're doing great. And since I've been back, I've been able to see both JC and JP, so it's been kind of cool. So anyway, once again, I'm Von Erich, and I'm here with our guest Jimmy Harrowvex from Greensboro, North Carolina's Divine Treachery. And we've got one more track that we're going to play from that album. That one is called Patterns. Anything you can tell us about this one?
Patterns is a fairly old song for us. I know that song kind of has a special place for Dalton with that one. Patterns is basically, I think what he's trying to say is, you get into these certain patterns, and sometimes the patterns that you're in are not good for you. Mentally, health-wise. I think that's what he's trying to say in the song is he's like, there's just too many patterns, for you to get stuck into. I'm not really trying to say what he's singing about, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of what he's trying to get across is, there's people stuck in these patterns, whether it be hardcore drugs, and they can't get out of the pattern. Kind of almost like a never-ending cycle for the suffering.
Sure.
You get into these patterns you can't get out of. So, and we've got a friend we've got several friends that are, stuck in some of these patterns, and some of the friends are no longer with us. It's just, I don't know, too many diseases, whether it's alcoholic, drug addiction, that just put you in an awful place.
Right. Well, very cool.
any of them.
Sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this will be kind of an interesting thing because it's another thing that we had talked about a little bit earlier is right after Patterns, we're actually playing a song from some local, to a classic local band for you. And I mean, a fairly well-known name in the underground back in my day. And you're also sharing a member. Now, this is False Prophet. Track that we're going to be playing is it's called Firstborn. This was actually originally released in '93 when they had briefly changed their name to Infernal Hierarchy. And they had released a 2-song, 7-inch EP through Rage Records out of New York. This track is from that. And it was re-released in 2013 via Heaven and Hell Records out of, I think they're out of Asheville, if memory serves me correct. And the collection is called Second Death. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your relationship to False Prophet?
Well, False Prophet, they're really good friends of ours, but our bass player Craig actually recently joined them probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so. He's been pretty fortunate. They've played with, they've opened up for Possessed and several other major label bands in the last couple months.
Right.
But they're a super, super awesome group of guys. They've been nothing but just nice to us, and they very supportive. They're always, pushing Divine Treachery and always coming to our shows. Just great people, and on top of amazing music.
Right.
So,
well, hint. Let's see a Divine Treachery and False Prophet mini tour.
that would be awesome.
Right, and you could share the bass player. I say it wouldn't be the first time I've seen that.
Yeah. Oh no, and he's always saying he wants to. That's one of his things. Is he wants to play double duty on some shows. So he's definitely down for that for sure.
Right.
But we would absolutely love to do any shows with False Prophet. I mean, like I said, they're amazing.
Well, awesome. All right. Well,
we're always game.
All right, and we're going to get into this next block of music. Once again, the first track we're going to play is Patterns. It's from Divine Treachery's 2019 release, Never Ending Cycle for the Suffering. We're going to follow that up with the track Firstborn from North Carolina's False Prophet. It was originally released in 1993 on the Rage Records 7-inch EP that was self-titled as Infernal Hierarchy. And then we're going to close out the segment with Final Judgment, a band that was out of Atlanta, Georgia. The song is called Habitual Sacrifice. The track was released in 1993 in 2 forms. First on their 4-song cassette demo, Drastic Dose of Reality, and then later on as a 7-inch EP under the same title that was released on the cult underground label ART Records. And once again, I'm Von Erich. This is The Pit, and the dial stops here. And that was Habitual Sacrifice from an early 90s death thrash hybrid band out of Atlanta, Georgia, by the name of Final Judgment. The song was released originally in 1993 on their 4-song cassette demo, Drastic Dose of Reality. The band also had a 2-song 7-inch EP under the same title that was released on the underground metal label ART Records. And Habitual Sacrifice is also included as a bonus track along with the 2 7-inch songs on the compilation release, the ART Records Single Series Volume 1, that was released in 2018 on Thrashback Records. That pressing is limited to 300 copies worldwide. There are less than 150 of those left, and if you haven't picked up a copy of that yet, please do so. And once again, I am Von Erich, and I am here with my guest, Jimmy Harrowvex, guitarist for Greensboro, North Carolina's Divine Treachery. And again, you know, I thank you for taking the time to do this, and look forward to hopefully seeing you on tour very shortly. And we're going to go ahead and close out this last segment with a track from Greenville, North Carolina's Neverfall, they're a younger thrash band that definitely has the stuff. I mean, I've seen them live. I mean, they're super tight, put on a great show. Towards the end of 2018, they released their first full-length album. They did that independently. The album's called Blood and Honor, and the track that we're going to play is called One in the Chamber. And then it's going to close with a track from Texas Thrashers' Consecrator. They've been around since the very early 90s. They did 2 demos in 91 and 92, and they were attempting to do a kind of a comeback back in 2005. They only ended up recording 1 song. The song was called Endless, and it remained unreleased until 2018, when California's Rocks Records released basically all of their recordings under the title Image of Deception. So, man, you got to pick that up. It's great stuff. But the Consecrator, the Divine Treachery are actually both available through the Thrashback Records hand-picked store. So, if you haven't already, again, go ahead and pick those up. Once again, Jimmy, I really appreciate you taking the time to do the interview. Do you have any closing comments for everybody out there that's listening?
Well, first of all, we just appreciate you and appreciate you, putting our name out there and doing the interview and everything. So first and foremost, we appreciate that more than anything. And just anybody that's heard the music, pick up the album. Hopefully we'll be your way sometime in the future and come out and check us out live. If you're in North Carolina, look us up. I'm sure we're going to be somewhere close. Come and see us. We'll aim to please.
All right. Well, right on. All right. Well, that basically concludes episode 2 of The Return of the Pit. And before we move into these last 2 songs, you want to go ahead and give your own shout out to Neverfall?
Yes, my boys, Neverfall, One in the Chamber. Check them out.
Right on. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
One in the 10.